What's up, Guru Nation? Let's demystify clinical research. Hey, Guru Nation, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Really means a lot to me. Like you see in the title, this has to do with the job market in any economy, all right? There's good economies, there's bad economies, there's normal economies. Where we are at right now in a 2023 and 2024 world is consolidation, especially at the site level, the traditional research clinics, a lot of private equities coming into it. And we saw this happen last decade with the CROs. There was a bunch of small to mid-sized CROs, private equity came in, combined them, a lot of mergers, flipped them to go public. Well, I had a live stream today with Joel White, and you guys should go check that out. Just search Joel White on my YouTube or on LinkedIn. You'll see it. This is common, right? This is this happens all the time in our industry and in life sciences. There's layoffs. And by the way, you're going to hear headlines every now and then, massive layoffs. You got to look under the hood. Who's getting laid off? Because from what I'm seeing right now, it's not clinical research coordinators and it's not clinical research associates. Even when there's a merger at the site level, the sites are so understaffed as is, they don't lay off coordinators. And same thing at the CRO level. When these mergers happen, yeah, some people might say, well, no, I was a CRA and I was laid off because of one of these mergers. That's really the exception. It was not the norm. The people that were laid off were the financial people, where there's more redundancy. The financials, the project managers, sometimes the clinical trial managers, pharmacovigilance, data management. A lot of that stuff's also already getting outsourced. But the real workers, the real boots on the ground, which are at the CRO level and sponsor level, CRAs and study directors, and then at the site level, the clinical research coordinators and the investigators, not getting laid off despite mergers. But consolidation creates opportunity. And it creates opportunity whether you want to continue your career path or whether you want to go the entrepreneurial route of either opening up your own site or just becoming a independent contractor / consultant, like so many of Guru Nation guests have done in the past. So let's look at what happened with just people I've interviewed, just examples of people that you can actually go on my YouTube channel and just watch their stories, right? There's a playlist called Interviews. I have hundreds of interviews. This theme is very common. Hey, my CRO got acquired by another CRO. I wasn't let go, but I just didn't like the new culture. And I had enough experience built in on my resume to go out on my own. Or sometimes there's other stories where I had enough experience on my resume to leverage that into a higher up position at a competing company or at a sponsor or at a tech vendor. So the opportunities are there. Read beyond the headlines, because when consolidations and mergers and layoffs occur, there's actually huge movements happening, huge shifts that the astute observer, which is hopefully you, Guru Nation, can take advantage of. And yeah, for those that don't like change, it definitely sucks. But the only thing what's the cliche? The only thing that remains certain is that nothing remains certain. So just get used to it. It's the way it is. Now, we can kind of go philosophical here and say, okay, if you repeat this, because if you stay in this industry long enough, within a decade, you'll probably see maybe 2 or 3 big shifts. So you'll see decentralized clinical trials. That was all the rage from 2019 to 2023, really. Now you're seeing the rage of site networks and private equity getting into site networks and CROs buying site networks. That's, I predict, going to be 2023 to 2027-ish, right? Plus or minus a year. Before DCT, it was virtual trials, if you remember that. That was a little shorter lived. That was like 2016 to 2019. Before that was risk-based monitoring, if you remember. And some of elements from those things, they don't just completely disappear. It's not like ones and zeros. It's not binary. Elements of those things that were successful remain, but they're called something else. And money starts flowing into something else, and those things are just considered ubiquitous. So here's a perfect example. Risk-based monitoring. All the rage. There was tech companies being formed to assist selling tools to CROs. Risk-based monitoring is still around today, 2023. There's no ecosystem really of like selling tools. Like those became ubiquitous. A lot of the CROs just created their own tools for that or acquired the tech vendors. So that doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that trend has moved on. Like that trend either became ubiquitous or it died off. Virtual trials, the majority of this trend died off, but certain elements remain. Some studies do occasional remote visits for patients, remote phone visits, the telehealth kind of visits. You can debate whether that's good or not, but the elements of that remained. Decentralized clinical trials. I think the bubble, we're in the middle of that bubble bursting, but elements of that are strong, powerful. E-consent is one, and that you can argue e-consent also came from virtual clinical trials, but e-consent is one. Some elements of telehealth that we discussed is one. What died off seems to be sites expanding their reach further than they physically can go and further than where they physically can still have trust for the patients. So look for the opportunities, okay? Because whenever consolidation happens, there's a void left open. And that void sometimes is how to manage these things. So operations becomes strong. Operations becomes a skill set. It becomes super important, not just for when mergers and acquisitions happen, but how do you implement studies more efficiently and more effectively? And then I'd be remiss to go on and say like, now follow where the money goes. Right now in 2023 and probably for the next 5 years or so, the money, the private equity money, the CRO money, IQVIA just paid $300 million for a site network in July of 2023. The smart money is going at traditional site networks, not this decentralized model of sites, but real sites in real communities, seeing real patients because of the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Which, by the way, that's a trend that's not going away. That's going to remain integrated into our industry going forward. This is why organizations like Latinos in Clinical Research is so important. It's not that the pharma is being nice. It's that the FDA has specifically told pharma, we will not approve your drug unless it's reflective of the actual public that will be taking this drug. Meaning, translation, up until recently, only Caucasians were in studies. Well, we know that all ethnicities in this country, at least, are going to take the drug. So where's the African American representation in your clinical trials? Where's the Latino representation? Where's the Asian representation? So this DE&I initiative, a lot of people they don't like it, whatever. This is not political. Some label it woke. Whatever side of the fence you're on is irrelevant. What matters is that this is a real thing that the FDA is incentivizing with dollars in the form of approvals or rejections based on enrollment in studies and a diverse enrollment in studies. So there's a business opportunity there for anyone willing to look into it. Now, the next half of this video is going to be for the entrepreneurs that want to go out on their own, specifically if you follow where the money is going, starting sites or being site consultant. And if you're not a venture capital or private equity, I do not recommend buying a site. I wrote an article about this in 2016 on my LinkedIn. I think it was 2015, 2016. I still stand by that to this day. I forgot what the actual numbers were, but they're still similar to what the market's going for now. I would never buy a site that's less than $1 million EBITDA unless you believe in the potential and that it's disproportionate potential to other similar sized revenue sites. So, Yuma Clinical Trials, Yuma, Arizona. It's probably disproportionately an outlier because there's no competition in Yuma, but the town is big enough to support a robust research population, right? Our only competition, at least so far, is the healthcare system here, which has been acquiring parallel to the research industry getting consolidated. Healthcare in general has been consolidating and buying up private practices and rolling them up into larger medical systems. So maybe we reach a point to where we're competing against them. But you guys know, if you guys follow me, you know small is the new big. I think there's tremendous advantage and efficiencies at smaller sites. So unless you think disproportionate, unique market compared to the others, avoid anything under $1 million EBITDA. At that point, it's just easier to start your own. Why? Because $1 million EBITDA or less, you're still dependent on a core team. You're probably still dependent on only 2 or 3 PIs and probably a handful of coordinators, maybe 5, 6, 10 at the most. Now, once you start getting into the 1 to 2 million EBITDA, or maybe even 1 to 3, it gets interesting for private equity. And then I think above 3, there's a market there too. And that market's probably more for the CROs. But I think the sweet spot right now is to get your site up to 1 to 3 million EBITDA, which is, for those that don't know, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and appreciation. Right now, the multiples are pretty high. As of August 2023, I'm hearing 6 to 10 times EBITDA. So if your site is generating $2 million a year in EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and appreciation, let's just say on the low end of that multiple, PE VC is buying you for 6 times your EBITDA, so that's $12 million price point. So it's naturally very attractive. These are pretty high multiples. It's very attractive for entrepreneurs to look at this and say, okay, I want to go start a site. Don't buy a site, guys and gals. Start it on your own. This is where consultants like myself and Chris, DSCS, we charge a low monthly fee to help you get studies, help you do your contracts like professionals, and not leave 60% of your profits on the table when you just take whatever contract you want and try to amateurishly negotiate it. It's all free. It's a low monthly fee that we offer. No other costs. All right. We help you discuss strategies to grow free. We help bring you study leads free, passive and active study leads. Active meaning when drug companies and CROs come to us and say, hey, we need some sites, boom, we go to our site network first. The only thing we charge extra for are things like the CRC Academy, where you can train your staff to become coordinators in 3 months with the proper adult supervision, which is you, potential site owner. We give our clients a discount on that. So, and not to toot our own horn, but I mean, there's only us, and I don't even think we have a comp in the market. So start your own, bootstrap it. If you know what you're doing within 5 years, you can still catch this wave of private equity and flip your site. And guess what? What if you miss the wave? Oh, well, they're no longer paying 6 to 10 times multiple. Now they're only paying 3. Well, no one's forcing you to sell. If you're making 2 million earnings a year, that's a legitimate business that you have probably scaled. You have to build systems in order for the business to not be dependent on you. You should read The E-Myth. It's a really good book called The E-Myth. It talks about how to build systems. It talks about how McDonald's is not actually in the business of selling burgers. They're in the business of selling systems to entrepreneurs who then go on to sell burgers. Your job as a site owner is to build systems to where the business is independently running with as little effort from you as possible. Towards the end, at the beginning, you're going to be putting in all your effort because you're going to be working in the business, meaning who are we screening tomorrow? Who are we randomizing next week? What study are we getting in the pipeline? How much more can we get on this budget? Who do I train for my next coordinator? That's working in the business. Working on the business is how do I grow it? How do I establish strategic partnerships with vendors? Shout out to my sponsors, Creo. It's the only one of my sponsors that you have to pay for. I use it. I love it. Versatrial, absolutely free to keep your study portals and everything organized. They're even getting into like feasibility stuff where it will make doing your feasibilities seamless. Inato, once you get a few studies going under your belt, Inato will hook you up with studies for free. Okay, and then Viva Site Vault. Free e-regulatory, free e-signatures, free e-DOA. That's building systems. And those are systems that can scale to some extent, which makes it attractive for private equity and venture capital. So when you look at, okay, there's a couple of things we're discussing in this video. Consolidation. Again, CRCs, coordinators, and CRAs, I predict are going to be safe for the next decade, at least. If you ever hear a story of a CRC or a CRA being laid off, it's probably from an experimental type of organization that fell into this whole decentralized clinical trials category, something like a Care Access, something like a Sciences 37. Those are just two that come top of mind. Yes, they had CRCs laid off at those places, but those are not traditional sites. Same thing with CROs. If you're working at a CRO that was not competitively positioned in the industry, well, they're going to have layoffs, or they'll get acquired and they might lay off a lot of their staff because they weren't run right. So a lot of this is also you, if you're an employee, you got to bet on the company that you're working for. Just as much as they vet you, you got to vet them. Hey, who's the CEO? I got to bet on the horse, which is the company itself, and the jockey, which is the CEO or the leadership. For those that did a good job analyzing Care Access, again, I know nothing about them. I don't even know who their CEO is other than the fiasco that happened on LinkedIn publicly. If you were scrutinizing it at all, you would look at that company and say, okay, it's experimental, never been done before, like kind of a proof of concept thing that they're scaling like crazy. They were hiring left and right because venture capital was pouring money into it. Okay, well, that seems a little risky. And then you look at the CEO, okay, never been in research, never really done this before, no track record of previous successful companies. I mean, those are two red flags, right? But that still shouldn't stop you from taking that job. If that's your first opportunity you get, take it. The problem with most people that were in that position, because they did hire a bunch of entry-level people, I know for a fact. So our CRC and CRA Academy had a bunch of students work for them. The smart ones saw the writing on the wall, and they did this analysis, and they said, okay, I'm going to stay here 3 months, 6 months. I'm going to try to push it out to 9 months, maybe a year. I know this company's kind of like shaky foundation, and let's see how time plays out. But from the inside stories I was getting, The environment was like very chaotic, to say the least, unstable. That should have been your chance to get out and go to a traditional company. And those that didn't, they played musical chairs with the time. The music ended and there were no chairs left to sit. So you had a bunch of coordinators, unfortunately, get laid off, mass layoffs. And those people are going to have a harder time finding jobs because their only experience was this untraditional type of company that didn't work out. So if those same people would have just quit their job and found another job, or not even quit, just find another job, get hired, and then quit, they would have been okay. So don't let this happen to you next time, or if you're still looking to get in the industry for your first job, carefully vet the company you're working for. Right? If you're going to come work for EMA Clinical Trials, vet us. Who's the jockey? That's me. Right? Vet me. And what's the company? What is their unique value prop? Do I think this company is going to be competitive? What kind of studies are they doing? You should be doing this. What are my upward mobility projections here? These are the kind of things you should be asking yourself. And don't come apply here. I'm only taking people that actually live in Yuma. But use this framework to guide your decision making in the future. So whether you're a career seeker or a potential site owner, there's a lot of movement going on right now in our industry. There's a lot of distractions. The fundamentals have never been truer. Sites are needed. Patients of all backgrounds are needed. Coordinators are needed. CRAs are needed. People who understand how everything fits together are needed. More sites are needed. Do your homework, due diligence, Guru Nation. Good luck. Let me know a year from now your success story. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Bye-bye.